The courtroom hangs in a silence so heavy it almost vibrates. Every breath feels measured. Every movement feels like a risk. Even the hum of the air vents sounds too loud for what's about to happen. The judge shifts forward on the bench, elbows on polished wood, eyes locked on Diddy. It's not anger in his stare. It's something colder, resolved, final. He speaks so softly it almost doesn't match the weight of the words. Final appeal denied. The sound slices through the room. Someone in the gallery gasps. A woman near the back whispers, "No!" before clapping a hand over her mouth. A pen rolls off a reporter's notebook and hits the floor with a sharp, embarrassing click. A marshal straightens instinctively, his hand drifting toward his belt. At the defense table, no one breathes. Diddy doesn't move at all. He sits there like stone. Only the smallest twitch in his jaw betrays him. His eyes don't blink. His hands, resting on the table just moments ago, slowly curl into fists, tendons tightening, knuckles turning pale. The judge isn't finished. And given the conduct brought to this court's attention since the original sentencing, his voice deepens, echoing off the walls. The sentence is hereby increased. The room cracks open. A woman in the front row lets out a sob. Someone in the back knocks into a bench trying to stand. A murmur of, "He increased it again?" ripples through the crowd. One of the prosecutors exhales in a tight, controlled stream, eyes never leaving the bench. The defense attorney's face drains of color, but the judge doesn't flinch. He drops his gaze to the stack of files in front of him and flips a page with the same calm you'd use to sign a delivery slip, as if adding more years to a man's life in prison is just another item on his morning agenda. That's when the truth hits everyone in the room. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't emotional. He walked in knowing exactly what he was going to do. And that's what makes it terrifying. Because this appeal wasn't just denied, it was weaponized. Something changed behind the scenes. Something powerful enough to convince a federal judge not only to hold firm, but to go further. Before we go any deeper, I want to know what you think. What do you believe forced the judge's hand here? A hidden report? A prison incident? Political pressure? Something the defense never wanted exposed? Drop your theory in the comments. And if you want every twist, every leak, every courtroom move broken down like this in real time, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't hear about these decisions days later from headlines, but as they're being made. All right, let's get back to it. The judge adjusts his glasses, scanning the room like he's measuring how much damage his last sentence just did. Then his eyes return to Diddy. The stare isn't personal, it's surgical, detached. The kind of look a surgeon gives right before making an incision that can't be undone. The previous sentence, he says slowly, no longer reflects the gravity of the conduct established in this record. The word gravity lands like a blow. On the prosecution bench, a folder is already open. Inside, printed emails, internal prison memorandums, disciplinary write-ups, transcripts marked with yellow highlights, documents that never existed at the time of the original sentencing but exist now. A prosecutor shifts her weight forward, fingertips resting on the edge of that folder like it's a loaded weapon. Another taps a finger on the table once, twice, then stops. The defense attorney leans into Diddy, whispering something fast, desperate, trying to build a wall out of words. Diddy doesn't answer. His eyes are locked on the judge. Somewhere behind them, a camera clicks. A courtroom artist sketches the exact moment a man's future collapses. A guard clears his throat quietly, and it still feels too loud. The judge raises his chin. In accordance with the findings detailed herein, he says, tone flat but unforgiving, the defendant will serve an increased term of imprisonment, effective immediately. It detonates. A strangled scream bursts from the hallway, someone who wasn't even inside the door, but heard the words through the wood. Inside, a woman stands up, shaking, repeating, "No, no, no," until a marshal gently guides her back down with an open palm and a quiet warning. Diddy finally moves. His head drops just a fraction. His shoulders sag. His eyelids close for half a second, long enough to let something crack behind them. For a single fragile moment, the careful mask he's worn through trial, media, and months of hearings fractures just enough that even the prosecutors look away. His attorney places a hand on his arm. Nothing. No reaction, no nod, no anger. Just a man sitting inside the wreckage of a decision he can't undo. The judge signs a document. Another, flips a page. His pen glides across the paper with no ceremony at all. Decision is final, he says without looking up. Not one person in that room doubts him. At the defense table, glances shoot back and forth. Panic, disbelief, numbness, all blending into one dead stare. They know what this means. Appeals were the last lifeline, the last legal route out, and in less than a minute, that entire road has been permanently buried. Two federal marshals step forward. They don't touch him, not yet. They just move closer, a silent reminder of what effective immediately truly means. The space around Diddy shrinks by two invisible steps. His fingers twitch, then slowly uncurl. He inhales, exhales, deeper now, longer, trying to hold on to control while the floor underneath him has already disappeared. A reporter near the back scribbles so hard the paper almost tears. Another leans back, whispering, "They really increased it again," like she can't quite believe she's writing those words for real, not for a hypothetical or a prediction. Across the gallery, someone whispers, "This isn't normal." Another answers, barely above a breath, "Judges don't do that, not unless something serious happened." But no one in that room knows the full picture yet. Not the public, not the press, not even some of the people sitting inside the gallery. All they know is this: whatever the judge read in those files, whatever reports, violations, or warnings found their way onto his desk, it was enough to turn a final appeal into a heavier sentence. Diddy slowly lifts his head. The confidence he walked in with, the posture, the attitude, the illusion of control, it's gone. What's left is a man whose future just evaporated in front of him in a handful of careful sentences. A marshal signals toward the aisle. It's a small gesture, almost nothing, but the energy in the room shifts with it. This isn't rumor anymore. This isn't speculation. This is the moment where possibilities die and reality takes over. No more appeals, no more delays, no more maybe. As Diddy rises to his feet, the courtroom feels darker, tighter, smaller. Like the walls themselves are closing in, sealing what just happened into history. And somewhere behind all of this, in sealed reports, private memos, and late-night reviews, lies the answer to one question everyone is now asking. What did the judge see that convinced him this man deserved even more time? 48 hours earlier, the same courtroom felt different. Not lighter, not kinder, just less certain. Tension was there, coiled under the surface, but it hadn't stepped into the center of the room yet. The gallery was only half full. The whispers were softer. A few people even allowed themselves to believe this might end with a small victory for the defense. Diddy walked in with his shoulders squared, chin slightly raised. He looked exhausted but not defeated. His eyes still had that sharpness, the look of someone who believes, or needs to believe, that there's one move left on the board. His legal team hovered close around him like a shield. Files lined up, highlighters uncapped, pages marked with neon tabs. They talked in low, urgent tones, rehearsing phrases, polishing arguments, convincing themselves that if they hit the right legal angle, they could shave time off, if not walk him into a better future, then at least away from a worse one. They weren't just fighting for years. They were fighting against the word irreversible. When the prosecution entered, the contrast was immediate. No frantic whispers, no scattered papers, no visible panic. The lead prosecutor carried a single, thick folder under his arm. Not a briefcase, not a stack. Just one folder heavy with something that didn't exist during trial. He set it down on the table with quiet precision. Not for drama, for control. When the judge stepped in and everyone rose, the shift was subtle but unmistakable. He didn't look at the gallery. He didn't glance at the press row. He didn't scan the room. His eyes went straight to the defense table and stayed there a second longer than usual. Then he sat. No sigh. No chatter with the clerk. No small talk. Just business. The defense attorney was the first to speak. His voice reached for the same strength it had at trial, but something inside it had changed. There was strain in the edges now. A little too loud in the beginning, a little too fast on the key words. He talked about sentencing guidelines. He talked about rehabilitation. He talked about overpunishment, disproportion, room for reconsideration. He emphasized that Diddy had accepted the verdict, complied with the system, worked within the process. The words were good. The logic was clean. But the judge's expression never shifted. He listened. He nodded once. He made a few notes, but his eyes kept drifting back to that one folder on the prosecution's table. When it was their turn, the lead prosecutor stood with a calm so controlled it almost felt insulting. "Your Honor," he began, fingertips resting lightly on the folder, "the appellant's arguments do not reflect the complete record currently before this court." The defense attorney stiffened. He knew what that meant. These weren't the same files they fought over the first time. The prosecutor flipped the folder open. The sound of paper sliding against paper cut through the room like a quiet warning shot. "These are supplemental reviews," he explained. "Post-sentencing developments, internal reports from federal custody, communications the court did not have at the time of the original judgment." He handed the first stack up to the bench. The judge took it. He didn't rush. He didn't skim. He read. Paragraphs, names, incident summaries, assessment notes. Lines underlined in dark ink. At the defense table, someone swallowed hard. A bead of sweat traced down the side of the lead attorney's face. Another lawyer leaned closer, whispering, "What is that? Is that from the facility?" One of the pages had a header in bold, "Post-conviction conduct review." Another, "Internal security memo, confidential." Diddy leaned forward just a little, eyes tracking every movement of the judge's hands. When those hands stopped on a particular page, Diddy's breathing did too. The prosecutor's tone shifted. This wasn't argument anymore. This was confirmation. "Your Honor, these reports document patterns of behavior that directly contradict the narrative presented by the appellant regarding compliance, remorse, and adjustment to custody." Words like incident, refusal, noncompliance, negative interaction pop out of the text. Less than a handful on paper. More than enough in a federal courtroom. Then the judge did something subtle. He leaned back. Judges don't lean back like that while they're deciding. They lean back once they've decided. The air in the room felt it. Diddy's supporters exchanged quick, worried glances. Someone in the gallery frowned, sensing a shift they couldn't quite explain. On the defense bench, the tone changed instantly. The attorney's voice grew sharper, faster, pushing case law, precedent, proportionality, anything that sounded like a rope to grab onto. But it all felt like shouting into a storm that had already passed overhead. A clerk walked up to the bench with a small handwritten note. The judge read it, lips thinning just slightly. He folded the note once, placed it face down beside the files, and inhaled slowly. Diddy's lawyer saw the change. His rhythm broke mid-sentence. He knew. Whatever was in that note, whatever was in those new reports, it had confirmed something the judge was already beginning to suspect. The judge straightened, adjusting his glasses with a slow, deliberate movement. "Is there anything further?" he asked. The question sounded polite. It wasn't. It was a signal, a final chance to say something that might matter before everything that truly mattered had already been decided behind closed doors, in late-night reviews, in quiet conversations no one would ever see. The defense tried. They spoke of progress. They spoke of intention. They argued that post-conviction behavior was being misread, misframed, weaponized against a man already serving time. They insisted that these incidents, whatever they were, did not justify more years. But every sentence felt thinner than the last, because the judge wasn't just listening to them, he was hearing something else. The officer reports, the security memos, the risk assessments, pieces of a puzzle everyone in that room wanted to pretend didn't exist. He closed the file. The prosecutor stepped back. The defense fell quiet. That was the moment the tone of the entire case shifted. Not when the ruling was spoken, not when the gavel hit, but right there in the quiet, in the way the judge looked at the man in front of him, not just as a defendant from trial, but as a risk calculated on paper. The appeal was never just about the past. It had become a question about the future. And somewhere in those pages, the judge found his answer. The courtroom feels colder when they return for the final session. Not because the temperature changed, but because everyone knows what's waiting for them on the other side of this verdict. The footsteps echo sharper on the floor. The whispers fade faster. The air itself feels like it's bracing. Diddy walks in flanked by marshals. Their boots hit the ground in a steady, unhurried rhythm. He keeps his gaze low, but not out of arrogance anymore. Out of fatigue, out of weight. His face looks different now. Whatever defiance was there earlier is gone. Whatever calculation his eyes used to carry is dulled. He doesn't look like a man in a fight. He looks like a man waiting to hear how badly he lost. His legal team sits rigid at the table. Files are organized with an almost obsessive precision, not because they'll be used, but because organizing something is the only thing they can still control in this room. One lawyer keeps wiping his palms against his pant leg. Another keeps adjusting her glasses even when they're perfectly aligned. They know what this is. Damage assessment, not damage prevention. The prosecutors sit perfectly still. No more shuffling pages, no more dramatic gestures. Their work is on the bench now, in the judge's hands. Their posture says one thing: we're done. Now it's his turn. When the judge enters and everyone stands, a hush falls over the room that doesn't feel like respect. It feels like surrender. He takes his seat with that same balanced pace, not rushing, not dragging. He arranges the stack of documents in front of him with deliberate care. The top file is thinner now, not because the case is lighter, but because the decision is condensed into a few crucial lines. He clears his throat. "I have reviewed the arguments presented," he begins, voice calm, layered, tired in a way that isn't physical. "I have considered the record in full, including the supplemental materials and post-sentencing conduct reports now before this court." Every muscle in the room tightens. The court finds no basis to reduce or disturb the original judgment. Someone exhales too loudly in the gallery. A single no slips out before being swallowed by silence. Diddy's head drops a fraction of an inch, but the judge's eyes don't leave him. "In addition," he continues, and this is the line that freezes the room, "the court finds that the prior term of imprisonment fails to adequately reflect the severity of the established conduct and the pattern of behavior documented since." That word again, pattern. On the bench in front of him sit the building blocks of that word: incident logs, internal memos, refusal notations, a risk assessment that uses phrases like poor adjustment, continued defiance, moderate to high concern for further misconduct. The reports submitted by federal custody officials, the judge says, detail violations of institutional rules, resistance to supervision, and troubling indicators regarding rehabilitation. The defense attorney rises halfway out of his seat before realizing this train isn't slowing down. He sits back down, defeated. Another lawyer murmurs something that sounds like, "We can appeal this," but the words feel hollow the second they leave her mouth. Diddy looks up sharply now. His eyes lock onto the judge's face, searching for any trace of hesitation. He doesn't find any. "What has come to light," the judge goes on, "does not show a man moving toward reform, but a man repeating patterns this court has already condemned." The prosecutors don't celebrate. They don't smile. They simply wait. "Accordingly," the judge says, words coming out steady, merciless, "the court hereby increases the term of imprisonment previously imposed." The gallery erupts, gasps, cries, disbelief. Someone stands, hands over their head, whispering, "This can't be happening." Reporters write so fast they're almost scratching into the paper. You can practically feel headlines being drafted in real time. Diddy doesn't react at first. He sits there frozen, eyes wide but unfocused, as if the words haven't reached him yet, as if his mind is trying to reject them on contact. Marshals step closer, not touching him, not restraining him, just waiting for the only part of this process left that involves them. His lawyer leans in, whispering numbers into his ear. Extra years, new totals, probabilities versus life expectancy. The math is brutal. Diddy blinks like he just got hit. He turns his head toward his attorneys, searching for something: a loophole, a misunderstanding, a promise of, "We'll fix this." But all he sees in their eyes is the truth they don't want to say out loud. It's over. The decision is final, the judge says. He stands. Judges don't stand like this unless they want every person in that room to understand one thing. There is nothing left to negotiate. He looks down at Diddy one last time. There's no anger in his face, no satisfaction, just the cold weight of a man who has signed the end of someone else's future. Mr. Combs, he says, tone steady, you are remanded to federal custody, effective immediately. Diddy's breath catches. His throat tightens. His eyes glisten, not with dramatic sobs, but with that sharp shine of someone who finally realizes this isn't a nightmare he can wake up from. Please stand, a marshal says quietly. Diddy hesitates. His hands tremble. His knees threaten to lock. He rises slowly, like the air itself turned to concrete around him. For a second, it looks like he might fall. One of the marshals shifts closer, ready to steady him if he does. Camera flashes pop from the back of the room. A reporter's pen scratches furiously. Someone in the gallery calls his name, voice cracking on the second syllable. He doesn't turn. He doesn't look back. His eyes stay fixed on nothing as the marshals guide him away from the defense table. The wood floor creaks under each step, each sound punching another hole in whatever hope might have been left. Outside, there are cameras. There are microphones waiting. There are people ready to scream their opinions into the sky. But inside, as the judge leaves the bench and the lawyers sit in silent shock, only one image dominates the room. The empty space where he was sitting. The chair pulled back, abandoned. The absence louder than the verdict itself. The gallery empties slowly. The lights feel dimmer. The door closes with a soft, final click. And somewhere down a corridor that the public never sees, Diddy has walked toward a door that won't open from his side again for a very long time. This wasn't just an appeal denied. It was a sentence rewritten, a future erased, a judge looking at a stack of paper and deciding a man's story had reached a point of no return. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think this increase was justice or punishment? Did the judge protect the system or send a message? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you want every twist in this case, every hearing, every leaked report, every decision that changes the rest of his life broken down in this kind of detail, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Because in this courtroom story, the cameras stop rolling long before the consequences do.